So say good morning, world. Happy Earth Day. And of course, Nora's going to do most of the talking today because we want to talk about eco-friendly travel and animal ethics and all kinds of fun things. But I want to thank you all for coming. There's some more folks coming in, which is great. And also for being flexible on the change in time, because this was originally scheduled for Thursday, and then Nora got stuck in Hawaii.
Yeah, I think it's like a real JourneyWoman like problem. Like, oh, I was jet setting around and got kind of stuck a little bit. A true privilege to be stuck in Hawaii, I should say. I'm back on Vancouver Island and it's 3 degrees, so I don't mind getting stuck in Hawaii for a little bit longer.
So for those of you who haven't been on a community call before, and we'll do introductions as part of this in just a moment, but typically we start off with a little moment of meditation or self-reflection, and then we get into the topic. And the topic today is talking about Earth Day and the things we can do to, protect wildlife when we travel and be good travelers, not tourists, so to speak. And Nora is our expert on the JourneyWoman Advisory Council, and for almost 2 years now, Nora, right?
Yeah, which has flown by.
And I just think it's so important to have her involved in these discussions and to be advising us on the right things to do when we travel. So it's a really important component of travel for me personally, and so I'm very happy that she's been contributing to our editorial and our webinars and events like this. So thank you, Nora. Your perspective is so important.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I think it's, so obviously I think it's important, but it's something that it's easy to not talk about because it's easy to get uncomfortable and go, ooh, I just want to travel. I don't want to have to think about, the sad parts of travel, but I often talk about how it can be gloomy, but I think it's also can be so obviously empowering and so wonderful to go on a trip and feel really good about it and have these real and this real animal focused perspective and feel like, okay, this was amazing. Not just this felt cheap, or I don't know if it felt good or not.
And we've got lots of articles Nora's contributed to on our website around, there was one that we just did on 4 easy ways you can be animal friendly when you travel. And she also gave us some great eco-friendly packing tips that we worked into an article, which honestly, Nora, had things in it I'd never heard of before. So I'm hoping you can talk about that a little too. We're going to start with a little moment of reflection, and I'm going to turn it over to you. I know you've got something planned to share with us, so over to you, Nora. Thank you.
Okay, well, good morning. Happy Earth Day, everyone. I just wanted to read a small poem. You might know it. It's Mary Oliver, and it's called Wild Geese. And I think that it can be a little somber, but I think it's so lovely to just focus on where we are in the world with animals, with ourselves. So without any further ado, you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees, and the mountains and rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. So that is Mary Oliver, who is a beautiful, wonderful American poet. And I love this poem because I think especially on Earth Day, where things are joyous and they're wonderful, and we think about our relation to the earth, we also can really think about our relation to, we're all animals, and all of us, you know, especially JourneyWomen, feel like we are coming home when we travel. And we are migrating is the actual word. We are migrating and finding our wild geese, finding the soft animal in our body and seeing what it loves. And I think such an important thing is, you know, we talk about guilty pleasures, and I don't think there needs to be guilt in pleasure. Just the soft, small animal that's inside of you, the woman that's inside of you, she loves what she loves. And so, especially in travel, we don't have to say, oh, I just wanted to do this with like an asterisk behind it. It's you want to do this, and that's okay. And I think that especially when working with animals, here's my segue, working with animals, we can and we should. We don't have to feel guilty about what we're doing, because there's many ways to commune with animals when we're traveling that isn't exploitative, and it isn't going to hurt the animals. And so I love being on JourneyWoman, because I love telling people, instead of this, do this. I was just in Hawaii, and I saw, Carolyn, you'll love this, I saw so many sea turtles that I love so much. And it's so amazing when we see these animals in the wild. We see, you know, Mary Oliver talks about the wild geese, the wild birds, the wild everything. You know, all of us travel to feel wild again, to feel out in nature, and how beautiful to see these animals in the wild rather than in a cage, enclosure, tank, or things like that. So that is the meditation that I took over. I hope you find my voice soothing. And so, yeah, I just wanted to, you know, I could talk to everyone for a while. Does anyone have any questions before I go forward or talk about animal stuff? Anyone want to, Anne, you unmuted, so it feels like you do.
I've been called out. I actually just had a comment because I recently went down to, I took this epic road trip from Pennsylvania to Key West. And one big thing I wanted to do down there was the Turtle Hospital. And it was amazing. I'm so glad I did this. They're so much bigger than I thought they were, you know, and they're all different. Each species, like some are vegetarians, some aren't. And he, you know, that program spoke to, you know, the trash, and like the leatherbacks are, you know, they eat jellyfish, and so they see plastic bags and they think it's a jellyfish, and then, you know, they eat it and it's too late. And there was one that they tried to rescue, but unfortunately couldn't. And they found, you know, TV remote controls in this thing, and poor thing, and, you know, dog leash. So anyway, now I'm so aware of just trash bags. Like if I see something flying or in my parking lot at my apartment or wherever, I pick it up, I make sure I secure it, and because it's going to find its way into the waterways and into the ocean. And I just, yeah, so I'm so glad you're doing this. You're making this talk. This is so important.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, the Turtle Hospital is incredible, isn't it? It's so amazing.
They are so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, sea turtles are incredible. There are some that are vegetarian and some that eat meat, and some of them start vegetarian and then eat meat, and other ones start as carnivores and then become vegetarian. They're so amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah.
WWF put out an amazing graphic a couple years ago that you can find really easily, that is like plastic bags floating in the water beside jellyfish, and they look exactly the same to our eyes. And then you think being underwater with sea turtle eyes, they totally look the same. Seeing all these plastic bags, I'm the same way, Anne. I see a plastic bag and go like, one of so I get people to volunteer with animals, and we have a couple sea turtle programs. There's one in Costa Rica, and there's like every day we like walk on the beach and clean up some marine debris, and I just love doing that because it's so easy. Anyone can do it. And even doing it when I was in Hawaii, like it really, I think oftentimes people think, what can I do? And even if I'm not volunteering with animals or taking time out of my day to go to these centers, can I really help them? But if you are one sea turtle and there's one less plastic bag, like that literally will help you. I think all of us have stubbed our toes before. And so, you know, when you don't stub your toe, when you're wearing good shoes, you know that actually does help. So those small things that you do when you're traveling, picking up, not using plastic bags and picking up things that you see on the beach is really, really helpful. And even things like recycling, the less plastic and the less stuff that can get into the ocean, obviously the better for these turtles. And you're so right, they're so big. I thought sea turtles were bite-sized, but they are huge. I think also a really amazing thing about sea turtles is they're all around the world. We do get some sea turtles in Canada. There's apparently some that lay on Vancouver Island. I've never ever seen that, but sure. But out in Nova Scotia, we do get leatherbacks that come in. And so they do go all up and down the eastern seaboard. And they're just always there, just like sharks and dolphins and sea turtles and everything else. The animals are they're always there, even if we can't see them. And I think that makes it even more magical when you do see them, because they're lurking, which I think is just wonderful. Does anyone have any other lovely stories like Anne? Have you visited a center before? Do you want to visit somewhere? I very luckily, like I said, I do help people volunteer, with animals in different centers around the world, and so have been very lucky to be on dozens of trips to go do stuff with animals. My background actually is I just have like a humanities degree. I'm gonna just limit my education, but I think oftentimes people think, oh, I can't possibly help because I'm not a vet, or I'm squeamish around animals, or I don't know the animals that we're working with. We have a wildlife center that we help people volunteer with in Guatemala, and I took my mom a couple years ago, and she has never done anything like that. And the first day we were there, she got to work with the toucans, and I just thought it was so cool. Like, my mom is amazing. She's an army wife who is able to wear every single hat in the world, but toucans she just had never worked with before. So I just thought it was so cool that she was able to, like, if you can cut up a banana, you can help a toucan, help a howler monkey. My mom was 68 then. So yeah, what an amazing woman, traveling with me, doing all kinds of silly stuff. That's another thing. You don't have to have a background to help animals, and you don't have to be a certain age. Our youngest volunteer was 6 that went with his mom. But then our oldest volunteer, there were 2 of them, and they were in their 80s, and they live on opposite sides of America, and they traveled to Nepal together, and they volunteered with a dog center we have there to help rescue sick and injured dogs, release them if they're part of the urban ecosystem, or get them adopted if they're more couch puppies. Some of them are. And all of our centers, and something that I tell people all the time, is you can volunteer, just like Anne, you can visit these centers, and I think when you go there, there are techs, there's vet techs, and there's veterinarians that are doing like the high level hard work, and then you get to go and tour, you get to cut up the bananas. Yeah, Carolyn, I think it's great to ask pointed questions rather than just, hey, who likes animals? So does anyone have like a memorable animal experience? Does anyone like when you were traveling, is there a memorable animal experience? Is there an experience that you want to have? Is there an animal that you always see when you're traveling? It's kind of neat when that happens.
So, oh yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm like half asleep. Hello? Hi. Yeah. Nice to see you, Nora. Yeah, I was so glad to read and hear that you're in Nepal also, because it's one of the countries close to my heart. I spent quite a bit of time there. I stayed for a few months down in Chitwan, where there's, it's all nature. It's all wildlife. You just cross this little river and you're right in the middle of the jungle. And I do remember one of many memorable experiences was staying overnight in the jungle in one of these raised, I don't know what they call them, not a shed, but just a place where you can go and there's a terrace that surrounds it, and you can just walk around at all hours of the day and especially at night. And there's a guide with you, of course, and they'll point things out that you don't see or hear. You have to be really silent. And we did see, also from the Jeep, I guess, that took us there and other places, we saw from a distance some rhinos and just other wildlife. And I mean, I've always been an animal lover. I've been dog sitting here more or less for 4 months in Mexico, which has been just an amazing experience. But that really taught me, and this is back in 2008, how just being present and silent and watching is all we need to do. And same even with the elephants there. They were, elephants bathing in the river, and I learned a lot about elephants in the wild. I went to this sanctuary or this place where they keep babies, and this was all very new to me, coming from an urban center like Montreal. And I think just having the experience of witnessing and watching and learning and listening and approaching if I felt it was safe or I was told it was safe or not. I think also if you have a feel for animals, like just even if it's dogs or cats, I think it is an incredible experience to sort of step out of your comfort zone and learn more about whether it's sea turtles or animals or rhinos. So thank you for what you're doing, Nora. It's a wonderful service, not only to wildlife and animals, but to the world, I think, really. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I love hearing that. I was also in Nepal in 2008, so maybe we've met before and just didn't know. I think it's so amazing, right? I also host an animal show for kids, and what I always tell kids is animals are either trying to hide so they don't get eaten, or they're trying to hide so they can't eat. And we are animals, and so if we want to see animals in the wild, in an urban setting, all we have to do is just be quiet and just hide a little bit. And I think that in itself, it's really hard. You see a rhino and you want to you're just frenetic, right? And you go but I want to see it. But if we just take time and we just pause, we'll see what's around us. And I think that's so amazing, because truly we are surrounded, no matter where we are, by life. And that's very neat. Does anyone else have? Karen, you're unmuted. Can I call on you? I love your painting in the background, actually. That's beautiful.
Am I muted? I'm not sure. I'm not quite on the ball today.
I also love your Highland dancers. Oh, you're now muted. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Good. Sorry, I just tuned in late. I was having difficulty getting onto the site. So,
welcome.
It's nice to be here.
Do you have an animal question or an animal memory you want to share, or what's your experience?
No, my animal memory would be at the moment being in the in proximity to Amboseli in Tanzania on a safari and we were sleeping in a banda. You know, you could rent these little bandas back in the 70s. And so we were in this little banda, my husband and my son and I, and went to bed at night. And then during the night, there was this incredible din. I mean, the racket was really something else. And it was a lot of the animals running past our little banda. And they were very noisy. So that was exciting, yes. We did not open the door to see which animals they were. We just sort of huddled into our little beds and hope they would get where they were going. And
yeah, they would go around.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, eh? Like they're always there. Arlene, your comment is so lovely too about resident cottontail bunnies. Something I always think about is, you know, we travel away to see these animals, and you know, we go to sub-Saharan Africa and we go on these safaris, and then you come back home, or when you're away, you show someone a picture of a squirrel and say, "This thing has been driving me crazy. It's been eating all of my tomatoes," and people are like, "That is the cutest thing I've ever seen. How dare you say it was driving you crazy?" I know when I was in Kenya a few years ago, they were having a huge problem with like monkeys stealing tomatoes. And I was like, oh yeah, we have this thing with squirrels, but like monkeys are cuter. And we had a like, who has cuter animals off? Like, no, you do. No, you do.
Well, I'm glad you like it, because it's amazing. I don't know where they go in the winter, but they've been coming to my backyard for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And prior to COVID, I had an autoimmune disease. So I was basically stuck at home. And I think that's when I started noticing things more in my own backyard. So now, in addition to the 2 bunnies who've come back, as of, I think it was Monday or Tuesday of this week, I now have 2 robin redbreasts, and they pick like the same spot in the backyard. And it must be something about when the lawn company cuts the grass and how those blades of grass that are very fresh and delicate and must be very tasty for these bunnies and these robin redbreasts, because they basically are going in the same, almost the same identical spots. And so that's been very interesting. But in 1999, I guess I spent a month in Japan. My son was working there. And so I went to Nara, and you were told they were fawns. I think you were told not to pet. But I decided I was going to be ambitious. So I just went up to one who was kind of sticking its nose over and just kind of touched the nose gently, and it let me do it. And then my son was also, earlier than Japan, was working for 6 months in Iceland, and he and I traveled around the country. He had a car for a day or 2. And so we saw by the roadside, behind a fence, the little Icelandic ponies. They're very, very tiny, and they're so cute, and they have these beautiful flowing manes. So my son said, I'm going to pet one. I said, just make sure you stay away from the teeth. So he went and did it on the back of the mane, and I decided, okay, if he can do it, I can do it also. So those were a couple of fun experiences that I don't think, I had never thought I would have, but they were in relation to animals. But my backyard is really quite lovely. And right now, although this is not an animal story, in the front of my house, I have hot red, hot pink, light pink, and white azaleas. And I had a neighbor she's a diplomat, or her husband's a diplomat. She sent me a note this morning saying, your azaleas are amazing. So that was kind of a nice little boost to my day.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, azaleas are, well, they're always amazing, but I'm sure like if she went out of her way to send you a message, they're extra extravagant. How lovely.
Well, in fact, the year I was in Japan, I was away from the end of March to the end of April, and I missed them. And I was so sad when I came back that I vowed I was never going to travel again during azalea time, because they're just too beautiful. I mean, there's that short period of time where they're gorgeous. And then especially if you have a heavy rain, it just ruins them. But even without rain, they are too beautiful, I think, to miss.
Absolutely. Yeah. Knowing that, you know, it really just shows us when everything right now in spring, when everything's in blossom, I think we all have our kind of favorite bloom, favorite flower that, you don't want to miss, because like you only get it once a year, and like, and then it's suddenly gone and you go, ah.
And yet this morning, and you reminded me of the Icelandic ponies and of the trip to Japan. And also when I was in Japan, we went up into the mountains and actually saw the place where the original three monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, are carved into a monastery up in the mountains. And this was the beginning of April, and it was snowing. I was not properly dressed for snow at that point in time, but it was still fun.
You sound like me right now. It's not snowing currently, but it snowed yesterday, and I am not prepared, even at home. You know, Arlene, you bring up actually like a really excellent point of something that I always tell people when we're talking about travel, and it's about, you know, consent-based tourism and working with animals. And it's just such an easy way. People are always asking me, like, I don't want to say travel hacks, but like, what are hacks or tips when volunteering or just traveling around animals? And I think consent is just the easiest way. Anytime you are interacting with something that is not you, you have to get consent. And Arlene, what a beautiful point you brought up, that you pet the nose of the little deer and you pet the little Icelandic ponies, and you truly got consent. If they didn't want to be there, they would have just left. But you had this beautiful interaction because both of you wanted to be there, and they weren't chained up. It wasn't someone like dragging them over and them being like, no, I don't want this. It was, you were interested in this deer, and this deer was also interested in you, going like, like what's yeah, you can pet my nose. I only have a hoof, so if you could pet me, that would be nice. And it's something I often talk about with like, dolphin tours and things like that, we see dolphins, we see animals, and we want to have this experience, and we're told that the dolphins or these other animals, elephants often want to be there, but then they're in tanks or they're chained up or they don't look very happy. Evolutionarily, the worst thing that happened to dolphins is they evolved to look like they're always smiling. So even if they're unhappy, they always look like they are happy. So we talk to people that have dolphins in tanks, and we go, oh, are they okay here? And of course, the people that have them say, yeah, they're smiling, but they are not. The dolphins live in almost infinite ocean. And so to then live in a bathtub, they're not happy. And we sort of used to think that they were okay. And I never want to shame people. We were told for a really long time that dolphins and pinnipeds, things like killer whales, could survive and were happy in tanks and dolphinariums and aquariums and things like that. But the more we know, the better we can be, to quote Maya Angelou kind of poorly. And we know now that dolphins don't want to be in tanks, and neither do killer whales. Elephants don't want to be tied up. They want to be in the wild. And so there are many amazing places that you can go dolphin watching. Hi, I was going to say hunting, and I would never say that. Dolphin watching. But you can go in a boat and you can see these wild dolphins. You can see, Amit was talking about seeing elephants in sanctuary and seeing rhinos in the wild. And I think it's just so important for us to remember, again, they're wild animals, and seeing animals like Anne did, sea turtles, seeing them in care and then having them, knowing they're going to be released again. I think that this is just like a way that we can just switch our perspective a little bit, because so many people have these wonderful experiences of, I saw this animal in the wild, and it feels a full body yes, and it feels good to say, oh, I saw a dolphin and it was in a tank and it didn't feel good. So we can look at the experience we want to have when we're traveling, and we say, is this animal consenting to this? Is this animal, does it want to be here? And Arlene, the animals did want to be there, because they could have left. They could have been like, I don't like how you're touching my nose, goodbye. It wasn't someone, we have, something that's happening quite often right now in tourism. People want to take selfies with animals, and I love a selfie, like body positive. Take pictures of your face, take up space, be a woman out in the world, take selfies, show people that you're there. But consenting selfies, you want the selfie, and if there is an animal in the background because it's walking by, awesome, get that, do that. But if there's an animal that's in a cage, or it has a chain around its neck or its abdomen, it's not consenting to that. It doesn't want to be there. And I think it also makes it a bit cheap, right? You see people that like take a picture through a scope. I was in Costa Rica a few years ago, and there were sloths, and we got to like take our phones out and take a picture of like a sloth very far away. And that was amazing, because like a sloth is in the trees, living a happy life, loving its life. And then there are other people that I've seen online that have pictures like holding sloths, and you go, ah. And again, I don't want to judge anyone, right? We don't know what we don't know, but these animals are wild. They do want to be wild. And as much as we want to touch them because they look really cute, they don't want us to touch them. And I think, putting it on like, thinking about consent makes it a lot easier. Karen was talking about the animals running, like hearing the animals running past. None of those animals want to be stopped and be like, oh yeah, let's have a selfie with this Cape buffalo. They will not be stoked about that. But letting them live their lives, and having we all talk about the magic that happens when you're traveling, when you happen to meet someone and you're like, it's so weird that I met you in this way. This is just another animal interaction that you're having, right? You're having it with a human animal. And, if we think about animals that way, they're all individual sentient beings. And they're saying, yes, I want to have this interaction with you. How much more special is it then? How much more like in your heart, you're always thinking about that time you saw this tiny Icelandic pony that would like fit in your pocket. They're so small.
It wasn't quite that small.
Well, not if you have women's pockets, they're not big enough, but. And then also, we talk about safaris. I think something that's so, also important, safaris are so cool and they're amazing. But we also have to look at the human element of safaris, especially now after the pandemic, when things are opening. Again, like moving it back to consent and saying, these people have been living in this area, looking at these animals, doing conservation with these animals, and being part of safaris that are conservation based, and saying, I want to put money back into programs that are conserving the animals, while also making sure that we're conserving the culture of these people, and also making sure everyone gets a living wage. If we take a bit more time when we're looking at safaris and do a little bit more reading, we can make sure that it's not animals that are in cages, and they're not animals that are in pens and later on perhaps being hunted. We can say, I feel good, and I'll feel good forever about this program because I'm helping conserve the giraffes and the guides and the rangers that are helping them. There's an amazing documentary called the Akushingo Rangers that everyone should look up. It's about women rangers, and you will love it. It's just a couple minutes, but you will be.
Could you say that name again?
You know what? I'm going to put it in the chat. But when I do that, does anyone have any? I've talked at you a whole lot. Does anyone have any questions? And again, does anyone have any questions for like the future, or did you want to like tell a story about some animals that you met, or want to know about how to interact with animals?
Nora, I have a question about zoos and
Absolutely.
aquariums.
Oh, yes.
And I read a shocking article that you gave to me, I think about a year and a half ago, about aquariums. And I think it's called buy fishing, where you, like how many fish it takes, how many fish are killed just to bring in one fish, for example, in an aquarium. And can it be done right at aquariums? Is it a good idea to visit aquariums, or what's your feeling on that? Because I've kind of written them off now because I just feel terrible about the process of how the fish got in the aquarium for me to sit there and watch. I'd rather go snorkeling or scuba diving or something and see them in the wild. What's your, although maybe not a shark, okay, but what's your feeling on aquariums and then zoos in general? Can it be done right?
Yeah, absolutely. So bycatch is what you were saying. Oh, also in the chat, I put the Akushingo Rangers documentary, The Brave Ones. Aquariums, first, it's really difficult to, if we just take a step back and look what aquariums are, what we've done is we've picked up a whole bunch of animals from their friends and their family. Every animal is sentient. Every animal, by the eyes of the law in Canada, animals are sentient, which means that we know that they can feel pain, and we know that many of them show compassion. Even goldfish, there's been some studies that show compassion in goldfish. So we take animals from the infinite space that they live in, their friends, their family, and we put them in like a small area so we can look at them. And it's like, they're beautiful, but is that appropriate? Is that okay? I find it really hard to say that there would be an appropriate place for aquariums. Just because you can go snorkeling, you can put your face in the water and look around at these animals that are just living their life. So Anne talked about the Sea Turtle Center, and there are centers that do rehabilitation and rescue of animals that then release them again. And sometimes centers will have education animals because they can't be released again. And I think these are the places that we want to visit. And so, like I was in South Africa doing a shark conservation program. They're little sharks, pajama sharks. They're amazing. And every week we would go and get pajama sharks from the ocean and put them in our tanks to do, scientists were doing this work. But then people in the area, tourists and locals alike, can go and see these sharks up close. And they're only at the center for a week, and then they're released back into the ocean again. And so it's run by scientists, and so we know that they are getting the best of care, and it's for science that they're there. And if you want to see these animals, you can. But aquariums in general, and also thinking of bycatch, to get if we think about these huge boats that go out that want this one unique fish, that they're taking away from its friends, its family, its whole school, where it wants to live, and then putting in this environment in order to get this one fish. So many other fish have to be caught. And honestly, the way that fish are treated, we used to think as a society that fish didn't feel pain, but kind of course they must, based on how they swim. If something bites you, you want to get away from it, so you'd feel that pain. And so the way that we get fish also is not very kind. And so I don't know if there is benefit to aquariums, especially we live with the internet. We can be delighted by dinosaurs, and like dinosaurs don't exist. And so we can be just as delighted by videos and VR and amazing documentaries of animals, of fish, without having to have them in front of us. I think that there can be a lot of entitlement of, well, I want to see this fish, but then does the fish want you to see it? It goes back to consent, right? This is a very long answer about aquariums.
No, it's amazing, because I think of, I started scuba diving when I was 15, and the feeling you get being in the ocean and seeing a manta ray or a turtle or a shark or any kind, a moray eel or a fish or whatever, it's like an exhilaration that you can't describe. And versus walking through an aquarium and seeing them, yes, they're pretty, but it's just not the same emotional response as you would see out in the wild. And after I read that article, I just said, I am never going to set foot in an aquarium again. Like, after many years of going to aquariums and being amazed by nature, I just feel like that's not, and the same with a zoo. I went to Australia to see to Steve Irwin's zoo in Australia, the Australia Zoo, and where he had alligators, and it was just mind-blowing, like how close he got to those alligators. And but he did it to teach us also that one of the things I took away is that an alligator can jump straight up. Yeah. So never stand on like a bridge above an alligator, because the alligator, so he was doing it as a way to teach us safety, I think. But yeah, I kind of have a real mixed feeling around zoos and aquariums now that I wasn't fully aware of before. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with dolphins, and I'd like to think that we've kind of become woke to that too, that we won't swim with dolphins in Mexico anymore or wherever to get the photo. Like, we've got to do better than that, because as you say, we know better now.
Yeah, and it just feels cheap now, right? Like when you are scuba diving or snorkeling or just swimming and you see a sea turtle or a parrotfish or a fish I can't identify most fish, it's amazing, and you have this magical experience that this animal is just living its life and you just happen to just be there. And it truly has this like you'll always remember this. But something like aquariums and swimming with dolphins, like, we've commodified these animals, and it's like a bucket list of just like, okay, I swim with dolphins, and then you have the picture and you don't think about it anymore. It's not this magical experience that you always bring up and always remember, saying like, I was snorkeling and then I saw this animal. People will often actually forget that they have swum with dolphins when they do it in a dolphinarium tank situation, because it isn't real. It isn't something that we feel really good about. And then later down the road we go, that wasn't great. And yeah, there's also so many amazing citizen science programs. And so I talked about the program in South Africa. So again, I have no background doing animal stuff. I just love them. And citizen science is when you don't have a background, but you can be taught enough. And so pardon me. So we also have citizen science in Mongolia, and that is a very easy way of explaining. You're working with wild horses and you're working with the scientists there. And science is just about good data. You just want to have like hygienic data is a lot of data points. And so in Mongolia, there are 2 scientists that are working on horse conservation. And if every time they see a horse, that's only 2 data points. But if we go there as citizen scientists and say there's 20 people a year, that's 22 data points. And so we're able to just extrapolate more information. Where are these horses going? How many babies do they have? Do they need to have more or less watering holes? Do we need to stay more away from them? Should park boundaries be larger because these horses are actually roaming way further than we thought they did? And so that is citizen science. You don't need to know anything about horses. You don't need to know about their biology, about their behavior. You are working with a scientist that knows all of that, but they just need sometimes your eyes to physically see the animals. Sometimes with the Shark Center, it's about collecting data, but it was also about like cleaning the shark tanks. The scientists can do their high-level science that they went to school for, and I get to be a Canadian that hangs out with pajama sharks. Cool. It just means they get to do their work, and I get to be like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. There's a shark right there. And so I love that. It's also called like community science because you're just a community member. And it's something that we're seeing a lot in Sub-Saharan and East Africa with different safaris and things like that. Rather than going in a safari truck and looking at animals, which is awesome and like you should definitely do. But if you're looking to stay a bit longer, there are many programs that you can be part of a citizen scientist program. And you can find these opportunities in many different ways. So I've alluded to a few times, I have a B Corp called Animal Experience International. So if you forget it, it's very easy to Google animals. I want to go international. I want to have an experience. It's 3 kind of longer words, but it's Googleable, so we don't regret anything. But you can look us up. We help people. They are from airport pickup to drop off. We make sure everything is sorted for you. And like I said, my mom has been on trips, and they're for anyone, solo and group travelers. I often once or twice a year will bring people on a group trip with me. We're going back to Guatemala and Nepal this year. But then also just like looking up where you want to go, like Google is your friend to say, like, I've always wanted to go to Malawi, and I've always wanted to work with wildlife. Okay, so that is kind of leading the witness because we have a program in Malawi. It's in Southern Africa, and it is enrichment, feeding, and cleaning husbandry of wild animals there. So it's baboons and hyenas, blue monkeys, everything in between, antelope. And again, it's the vets are already working there. We already have behaviorists and scientists, and you're just doing the feeding, the cleaning, enrichment with these animals. And so it's stuff that anyone can do. Anyone can, if you can sweep, then you can sweep out a baboon enclosure before they get released. And so, as like a handy tip, again, thinking about consent. If a program is saying that you can feed a baboon, you might go, would a baboon want that? Probably not. But if a program is saying you can't feed them directly, but you can make their food and give it to them, and then when they're not afraid of you, they'll go and eat, then you go, oh, yes, that is consent. That is, if a program is promising that you will interact with an animal, like, you can't do that. Like, I can't promise that my mom will interact with you, so we can't promise that a toucan will want to. We can say that a toucan will be around. I'm using my mom. It's a very strange example, but I think it does work. So yeah, just, looking at what's being promised to you and how they could promise you, I think is really important. Looking at the same with aquariums versus snorkeling. An aquarium will promise that you can see a manta ray, and that is great, but how can they promise that? They took the manta ray somewhere and they put it there. If you go snorkeling and they go, like, you're probably gonna see them because they live here for surezies, then yeah, like you're going to their home. They're not necessarily guaranteeing it, but they're saying, you know, we know that they're there. So we are almost out of time, which is so, I could talk forever. But does anyone have like a wild dream or an animal experience or something that has been on their heart for the pandemic, which has been forever or even longer than that? Anything they want to talk about, or I can help you navigate how to find it?
Nora, I'm going down to Mexico again in a few weeks, and we'll be in sea turtle country again. So I'm excited to do what I did before in Puerto Escondido, which was do some sea turtle release programs. So that is my next adventure. And I'm also planning to go to Guatemala. So I want to talk to you more about toucans, right? Was that where the toucans were? Yeah. So
Toucans.
I think it would be really lovely, you know, for every trip you go on, you build in some kind of animal experience, like intentionally. And there are so many opportunities to do that when we travel. And I think some of the criteria you've given us is great to consider as we're looking for places in our travels where we can go experience animals out in the wild and look for different ways to engage with animals. So I think it's really that's what I like to do is look for those opportunities every time I travel.
Yeah. And you know, they always exist, right? Like we travel and you know, we want to look at local culture and we want to see local art. And I think totally like wanting to have a conservation or animal time to commune is also amazing, because every single place has such different animals, and every single country has people that love animals. You do not have to exploit them, but you also don't have to. I think oftentimes people go, I don't want to see an animal thing because I'm going to be sad or worried, or maybe the animals are treated differently. I've been to a lot of countries and I am almost always there doing animal stuff. And so there's always veterinarians, always scientists, always people that want to help. And so you don't have to put blinders on because you don't want to see something you don't want to see. You can very, maybe not always easily, but with enough research, and always come talk to me, send me an email before you go somewhere. Say, ooh, I want to do something, I don't know the questions to ask, and I can point you in the right direction. Because yeah, like releasing sea turtles, how amazing. Like these little tiny, I said they were bite-sized before, and they very much are, little tiny like medallions going into the ocean, swimming so hard and just hanging out. Amazing thing about sea turtles is we call it the lost years, in between them being very small and very big. Most scientists don't know where they go at all. We know they kind of like float around and pretend they're leaves so animals don't eat them, but we don't know if they stay close to home, if they go vacationing in Bermuda. And it is so interesting. We know so much about the earth, but these animals that are living with us, we don't know anything about, or we know a very small amount. And so it's so amazing to go where there's this local knowledge, oftentimes local indigenous knowledge, that not only can talk about how how they're conserving these animals, and how when you conserve animals, you conserve the planet, you help people. It's often women you're helping. But also you learn from very often indigenous scientists about the legends, the history, the everything behind these animals. And you learn, in North America, we're living on Turtle Island, and you see a picture of Turtle Island and you're like, oh, it really is a turtle. And when you go down to Mexico and you hear indigenous stories of the turtles, you're like, oh, yeah, of course, that totally makes sense. So it's not that I'm animal crazy, I am, but like it's just interwoven into everything else. And I think it just makes it a much richer experience when you travel and you think about the animals when you're there.
I've even got my elephant earrings on today from Nairobi, from the Sheldrick Trust.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Baby elephants. Oh man.
Oh my gosh. They're so cute. They're so naughty.
Does anyone else who hasn't shared today want to share anything about their wildlife experiences? Mary, Asme, Terry?
See that Anna's unmuted again.
Just while you were talking, I was thinking about lots of different things, but webcams they have, like at the Elephant Sanctuary in Tennessee, and then also there are eagle webcams. So that's a neat way to see wildlife, without being intrusive.
Oh, and that is a brilliant point. And yes, hands down to you. That is the best point. We have, and so this is another thing, like scientists go up and like put these webcams in so you can see these. I was just looking at one with bald eagles because I thought maybe they would be majestic when they are born. They're not. They're very gross. But it's so important for scientists and all of us to see these animals. And so they put these webcams up, and then also just to show you, right? Like to show the magic of the Elephant Center in Tennessee. The elephants from the Toronto Zoo a few years ago were brought down to Tennessee. There's a documentary, and I cannot remember the name of it. But getting them down there and having them trumpet back and forth and meeting their friends that they hadn't seen for years, these elephants, and then being able to see these webcams, again, like if you love animals, we don't need to exploit them. We don't have to do something that makes us feel kind of gross. We have the technology now that we're able to see them and go, how deeply incredible that I live on a planet that elephants exist. I was born in a time that I can see elephants in all of their weirdness. So yeah, webcams for sure. The Smithsonian has loads of them. And then, yeah, you can also just look up your favorite animal webcam. It will exist.
That's great, Nora. Thank you so much for leading today's discussion and getting up early to do that. Nora is also speaking at our Women's Travel Wisdom Retreat in October, which is a 5-day retreat in California, talking about this more and helping us, build our travel vision for the future with animals in mind and with consent in mind. So can't wait to see you there, Nora. I wonder if we'll meet before that, but it's amazing. I'm just amazed by how I have not met people yet. I just love them from talking to them for the last 2 years, and you're one of them. And I also want to mention we have on our website under tours, we have a lot of animal-friendly tours available to look at, including Nora's, but also others around the world in Mongolia and South Africa. And, there are some incredible women-friendly tours that we've reviewed that are animal safe for women to choose from if you're looking for some way to get started. And of course, we're always available, as Nora said, to answer questions about any tour experiences that you want to go on. And just in closing, I want to mention also we're in the process of arranging meetups around the world. So I'm hoping to send an email out today with updates on that. So we've got San Miguel de Allende happening this weekend. We've got another one happening in Toronto, in Edmonton, in Detroit, in New York, in California, in Vancouver, Nora. So we're in the process of setting up opportunities for women to get together in person and meet. So keep an eye out for that email, hopefully coming today if I can find some time to do that. And also this afternoon, it's a little last minute, but we're doing a little session on travel and menopause at 2:00 today. So, it's at noon today. If you'd like to join that, just send me an email at editor@JourneyWoman.com and we'll get you signed up for that. And I think that's enough for this morning. So thank you all for joining us and sharing your stories. We could all talk about animals forever. I think it's just part of what makes travel so exciting, is to see wildlife and have all those wonderful memories. So thank you again, Nora.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Earth Day, everyone. Thank you for
Happy Earth Day.
Thank you so much for having this conversation, Carolyn. I obviously love talking about it, and I love how all of us can just go like, oh, animals. So weird.
I'm
so
ready
amazing.
to talk about it anytime. We can keep talking, Nora. Do you want to keep going?
Always.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great Earth Day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.